Dorothy Barker stands frozen at her apartment door. It's midnight. Her hands shake as she holds her keys. The door is already unlocked. She pushes it open slowly. Her heart stops. Trevor, her ex-boyfriend, sits on her couch in the dark. He's holding one of her kitchen knives. The smell of his cologne fills the small room. Dorothy's mind goes blank. She'd been hiding from him for 3 months. She moved across Los Angeles. She changed her phone number. She paid rent in cash so he couldn't trace her. But somehow he found her anyway. Trevor stands up. He points the knife at her. "We need to talk," he says with a smile that makes her blood run cold. Dorothy can't move. Should she run? Should she scream? Then she hears footsteps in the hallway behind her. A calm voice cuts through the silence. "Dorothy, your door's open. Everything okay?" It's James Park, her neighbor from apartment 3C, the quiet man who lives next door. The man she just found out is a boss in the Korean Mafia. Trevor's face fills with rage as James steps into the doorway. Dorothy has no idea that this night will change her entire life. What do you think happens when a mafia boss walks in on an armed ex-boyfriend threatening a woman? Before we continue, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notifications. Tomorrow, I'm dropping another powerful story you absolutely cannot miss. Your support means everything. It helps us bring you more incredible stories like this one. To all our amazing viewers watching from the United States, Australia, Mexico, France, the United Kingdom, Canada, Brazil, Japan, Jamaica, and every corner of this world, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for engaging with our content. You are the reason we do this. We appreciate every single one of you. We love you all. Now let's begin. 3 months before that terrifying night, Dorothy Barker was living a completely different life. She was still with Trevor Patterson. They'd been together for 4 years. For long years that started beautiful but ended in fear. Trevor was the kind of man who looked good on paper. He was handsome with a smile that could light up a room. When Dorothy first met him at a friend's birthday party, he was charming. He brought her flowers on their second date. He remembered small details about things she said. He made her feel special. For the first year, everything seemed perfect. But slowly things changed. Trevor started asking where she was going every time she left the house. He wanted to know who she was texting. He'd show up at the diner where she worked, saying he just wanted to surprise her. But it never felt like a surprise. It felt like he was checking on her. By year 2, Trevor had quit his job. He said he was looking for something better. But months passed and he never found anything. Dorothy worked double shifts to pay their rent. She bought the groceries. She paid the bills. When she asked him to help more, he'd get angry. He'd tell her she was nagging him. He'd say she didn't appreciate how hard it was to find good work. By year 3, Dorothy couldn't have friends over anymore. Trevor said they were too loud. She couldn't go out without him. He said it wasn't safe for a woman alone. She couldn't wear certain clothes. He said they attracted the wrong kind of attention. Everything in her life became smaller and smaller until it was just her, Trevor, and the 4 walls of their apartment in Inglewood. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in July. Dorothy had saved up money to visit her brother in Texas. She hadn't seen him in 2 years. She told Trevor about the trip, and he exploded. He threw her phone across the room. He punched a hole in the wall next to her head. He didn't hit her, but the message was clear. He could have. That's when Dorothy knew. This wasn't love. This was control. This was danger. She ended it that same day. She packed a bag while Trevor was out and stayed with a coworker for a week. She told Trevor over the phone that they were done. She thought that would be the end of it. She was wrong. Trevor called her 73 times the first day. When she blocked his number, he called from other numbers. He created fake social media accounts to message her. He found out where she was staying and left flowers at the door with notes that said, "I'm sorry, and I love you, and please come back." Dorothy moved back to their old apartment after her coworker said she couldn't stay anymore. Trevor had moved out, so she thought she'd be safe there. But Trevor still had a key. She'd come home from work and find things moved around. A candle lit on the table. Her favorite snack in the refrigerator that she knew she didn't buy. She changed the locks. Trevor started showing up at the diner. He'd sit in a booth for hours just watching her work. He never caused a scene. He'd order coffee and pie and leave a big tip. But his eyes followed her everywhere. Dorothy went to the police. Twice. The first officer took her report, and said unless Trevor threatened her directly or hurt her, there wasn't much they could do. The second officer was more sympathetic. She filed another report. She asked about a restraining order. They told her she needed more evidence. Texts, emails, witnesses to threatening behavior. But Trevor was smart. He never put anything in writing. He never threatened her in front of other people. He just existed in her life like a shadow she couldn't shake. That's when Dorothy made her decision. She had to disappear. She planned it carefully. She found a new job at a diner in Mid-City, far from Inglewood. She told her boss at her old job that she was moving out of state. She didn't tell anyone where she was really going. She started paying for everything in cash so Trevor couldn't track her bank statements. On a hot night in August at 2 a.m, Dorothy packed everything she owned into black trash bags. She didn't have much. Clothes, a few books, some photos of her mother who'd passed away. She loaded everything into her old car and drove away from Inglewood. She didn't look back. She needed a place to live fast. She couldn't use normal rental websites because they required credit checks and references. That's how she found Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim was a woman in her 60s who owned a small apartment building on 5th Street in Koreatown. She barely spoke English, but when Dorothy showed up with cash for 3 months' rent, Mrs. Kim smiled and handed her the keys. No questions asked. No paperwork. No trail. Koreatown was perfect for Dorothy's purposes. It was on the other side of Los Angeles from everything Trevor knew about her life. She'd never mentioned this neighborhood to him. She didn't know anyone here. Trevor would never think to look for her in this part of the city. The apartment was small. 1 bedroom. A kitchen so tiny she could barely turn around in it. Old wooden floors that creaked when she walked. But it had 3 locks on the door. A deadbolt. A chain. A regular lock. Dorothy used all 3 every single night. She started her new job at the diner in Mid-City. She took 2 buses to get there. She worked the evening shift, 6 days a week. She kept her head down. She smiled at customers. She made decent tips. Her new boss paid her in cash every Friday, no questions asked. Dorothy's new life was simple. She woke up. She went to work. She came home. She locked her 3 locks. She ate dinner alone. She went to bed. She didn't make friends. She didn't go out. She didn't post anything on social media. She was a ghost. But even ghosts get scared. Dorothy jumped every time she heard footsteps in the hallway. Her heart raced when she saw a car that looked like Trevor's. She checked over her shoulder constantly when she walked from the bus stop to her building. She kept pepper spray in her pocket, and her keys laced between her fingers like a weapon. At night, she'd lie in bed and listen to the sounds of the building. The thin walls meant she could hear almost everything. The family upstairs arguing in Korean. The couple next door watching television. The building settled and creaked like an old ship. But apartment 3C, right next to hers, was always quiet. For 3 months, Dorothy lived like this. Always watching. Always waiting. Always afraid that Trevor would find her. She had no idea that the biggest surprise wasn't going to be Trevor finding her. It was going to be finding out exactly who her quiet neighbor really was. Dorothy met her neighbor on her 3rd day in the building. She was carrying 2 paper bags full of groceries up the stairs. The elevator had been broken for 6 months, according to Mrs. Kim. Dorothy didn't mind. She was used to things not working perfectly. She was on the 2nd floor landing when the bottom of 1 bag gave out. Apples rolled down the stairs. Cans of soup bounced and clattered. A carton of eggs hit the ground and cracked open. Dorothy watched her groceries scatter everywhere and wanted to cry. It had been a long day. She was tired. She just wanted to get inside her apartment and eat something. Need help? Dorothy looked up. A man stood at the top of the stairs. He wore an expensive-looking black suit. It was 11 in the morning. Who wears a suit like that at 11 in the morning on a Thursday? He was Korean, probably in his late 30s. He had sharp features and dark hair styled perfectly. But it was his eyes that caught Dorothy's attention. They were watching everything. The stairs below her. The hallway above. Her. The scattered groceries. Like he was always calculating something. "I got it," Dorothy said, bending down to pick up an apple. The bag just broke. The man didn't wait for permission. He walked down the stairs and started gathering the rolling fruit. He handed her 3 apples and a can of tomatoes. "Mr. Lee's Market on the corner?" he asked. "Yeah," Dorothy said. "How did you know?" "He's cheap with everything except his prices. His bags are terrible. The man picked up 2 more cans and put them in Dorothy's good bag. I'm James Park. Apartment 3C. Dorothy Barker. 3B. Just moved in a few days ago. James smiled slightly. It wasn't a big smile. Just a small movement at the corner of his mouth. Welcome to the building. If you need anything, I'm usually around. They gathered the rest of the groceries in silence. The eggs were ruined, but everything else was fine. Dorothy thanked him 3 times. James just nodded and walked to his apartment. She heard his door open and close. 3 locks clicked into place. Just like hers. Dorothy went into her own apartment and thought about her new neighbor. There was something about James Park that felt off. Not bad, exactly. Just different. The way he moved was too smooth. Too aware. Like a cat that always knows where the exits are. And that suit. That expensive suit in the middle of a Thursday morning. What kind of work did he do? But Dorothy had learned not to ask questions. She had her own secrets. James Park could have his. Over the next few weeks, Dorothy settled into a routine. She'd see James occasionally in the hallway. He'd nod. She'd nod back. They'd say good morning or good evening and keep walking. That was it. They were neighbors, nothing more. But Dorothy noticed things. She couldn't help it. The walls in the building were thin. She could hear the family upstairs. She could hear the couple next door. But from James's apartment? Nothing. No television. No music. No talking. Just silence. She also noticed his schedule. Or lack of one. Sometimes she'd hear him leave at 3 in the morning. His footsteps in the hallway. The 3 locks clicking open. The door closing quietly. Sometimes he'd be gone for 2 or 3 days. Then he'd come back at strange hours. Early morning. Late afternoon. Middle of the night. Once, Dorothy was coming home from work around midnight. She saw James getting out of a black car on the street. 2 other Korean men were with him. They all wore dark suits. They looked serious. One of them said something in Korean. James responded in the same language, his voice low and calm. The men bowed slightly to him before getting back in the car and driving away. James saw Dorothy on the building steps. He nodded at her. Working late. Every night, Dorothy said. You too. Business meeting, James said. He didn't explain what kind of business. Dorothy didn't ask. They walked up the 3 flights of stairs together. Their footsteps echoed in the quiet building. At the 3rd floor, they went to their separate doors. Dorothy heard James's 3 locks click into place, just like always. For weeks passed like this. Dorothy went to work. She came home. She saw James sometimes. They were polite. They kept their distance. Dorothy started to feel safe. Trevor hadn't found her. He didn't know about Koreatown. He didn't know about 5th Street. He didn't know about the little apartment with 3 locks on the door. Maybe she'd actually escaped. Maybe she could finally breathe. Dorothy should have known better. She should have known that feeling safe and being safe are 2 different things. The truth about James Park came on a Tuesday night in October. Dorothy had worked a double shift at the diner. She was exhausted. Her feet hurt. She smelled like French fries and coffee. All she wanted was a hot shower and her bed. She got home around 11:30 at night. She was climbing the stairs to the 3rd floor when she heard voices. Angry voices. Speaking Korean. The voices were getting louder. Dorothy reached the 3rd floor landing and froze. 3 men were walking down the hallway toward James's apartment. They looked upset. One of them was shouting. Dorothy didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. They were here for a fight. She quickly unlocked her door and slipped inside. But she didn't close it all the way. Something told her to watch. She left it open just a crack and looked through the gap. The 3 men stopped at James's door. They pounded on it. Hard. The sound echoed through the hallway. One man kept shouting in Korean. James opened the door. He was wearing dark pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked completely calm. That calmness was more frightening than if he'd looked angry. He said something in Korean. His voice was quiet. Dorothy couldn't hear the words. One of the men stepped forward and shoved James. Not hard enough to knock him over. Just hard enough to make a point. To show disrespect. What happened next happened so fast that Dorothy almost missed it. James moved like water. Smooth and quick. 1 second the man was shoving him. The next second the man was against the hallway wall with James's forearm pressed against his throat. The man's feet were barely touching the ground. The other 2 men reached inside their jackets. Dorothy's heart stopped. Were they reaching for guns? James said something in English this time. His voice was still calm. Still quiet. Not here. You want to talk? We talk somewhere else. Not in this building. Nobody moved. The man against the wall couldn't move. The other two men had their hands inside their jackets, but hadn't pulled anything out yet. The air felt heavy. Dangerous. Then James said something else in Korean. Whatever it was, it worked. The two men slowly took their hands out of their jackets. Empty. James let the man against the wall go. The man rubbed his throat and coughed. All three men backed toward the stairs. They kept their eyes on James the whole time. One of them said something in Korean that sounded like a threat. James didn't respond. He just watched them leave. His face showed nothing. After the men were gone, James stood in the hallway for a moment. He was completely still, listening, making sure they were really gone. Then his eyes moved to Dorothy's door, to the crack where she was watching. Dorothy's breath caught. She'd been caught. James walked over to her door slowly. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. You should close this, he said quietly, and lock it. Dorothy's hands were shaking. She opened the door a little wider. Are you okay? I'm fine. James glanced back at the stairwell. But you didn't see anything. Understand? Dorothy nodded. She understood perfectly. James started to walk back to his apartment. Then he stopped and turned around. Dorothy, are you in some kind of trouble? The question surprised her. What? No. Why would you ask that? You pay rent in cash. You don't have any visitors. Ever. You jump every time someone comes up the stairs. You've been here almost a month, but you haven't gotten any mail delivered here. It all goes somewhere else. You're hiding from something. Or someone. Dorothy felt her face get hot. She'd been so careful. How did he notice all of that? I'm just a private person, she said. So am I, James said. That's why I recognize it in other people. He paused. If someone is bothering you, I should know. We're neighbors. What happens to you could affect me. Dorothy thought about lying. But what was the point? It's handled, she said. Just an ex-boyfriend who doesn't understand that it's over. But he doesn't know I'm here. James studied her face. Keep it that way. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a pen and a receipt. He wrote something on the back and handed it to her. This is my phone number. If you ever feel unsafe, if your ex finds you, if anything happens, you call me. Day or night. Dorothy looked at the number written in neat handwriting. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Because you didn't call the police just now, James said simply. That shows good judgment. And because I don't like men who scare women. It's a thing with me. He walked back to his apartment and went inside. Dorothy heard the 3 locks click into place. She stood in her doorway holding the piece of paper with James's phone number. She should throw it away. This man was clearly involved in something dangerous. Something illegal. The smart thing would be to avoid him completely. To keep her distance. To pretend she never saw those men in the hallway. But Dorothy didn't throw away the number. She went inside her apartment. She locked all 3 locks. And she put James Park's phone number in her wallet. 3 weeks passed after that night in the hallway. Dorothy tried to forget what she saw. She tried to go back to thinking of James Park as just a quiet neighbor. But she couldn't. Every time she saw him now, she remembered how fast he moved. How calm he stayed when those men came to his door. How his forearm pressed against that man's throat like he'd done it 1,000 times before. But James acted like nothing had happened. He'd see Dorothy in the hallway and nod. Sometimes he'd ask how her day was. Once he held the building door open for her when she was carrying groceries. He even made a joke about getting better bags from a different store. Dorothy fell into her normal routine. Work, home, sleep. Work, home, sleep. The diner stayed busy. Her tips were good. She was saving money for the first time in years. Trevor hadn't called. Hadn't shown up. Hadn't found her. Maybe she really had disappeared successfully. She started to relax. Just a little bit. She stopped checking over her shoulder quite as much. She stopped jumping at every sound. She even slept through the night a few times without waking up in a panic. On a Wednesday night in late October, Dorothy finished her shift at the diner around 11:45. One of her coworkers offered her a ride, but Dorothy said no. The bus stop was only 2 blocks away, and the buses ran until 1 in the morning. She didn't want to be a burden. She caught the last bus and got off at her usual stop 6 blocks from her building. The street was quiet. Most of the shops were closed. A few restaurants were still open, their lights warm and bright. Dorothy could hear people inside talking and laughing. She walked quickly. Her keys were already in her hand. Her pepper spray was in her jacket pocket where she could reach it fast. She'd learned to always be ready. She was 3 blocks from her building when she heard it. Dorothy. Her whole body went cold. She knew that voice. She'd know it anywhere. She turned around slowly. Trevor was standing next to a parked car about 20 feet behind her. He was smiling. That same charming smile he used to give her when they first started dating. Like they were old friends running into each other by chance. But this wasn't chance. And they weren't friends. How did you find me? Dorothy's voice came out steadier than she felt. Trevor walked closer. He was wearing nice clothes. Dark jeans. A button-up shirt. He looked good. He always looked good. That was part of the problem. Baby, you can't just disappear on me like that, he said. His voice was soft. Gentle. Like he was talking to a child. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. Dorothy took a step back. I told you it's over. I filed police reports, Trevor. You're not supposed to contact me. Those reports don't mean anything. Trevor kept walking toward her. You know that. I just want to talk. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. No. Dorothy turned and started walking toward her building. Fast. Trevor followed. She could hear his footsteps behind her. Don't walk away from me. After everything I did for you, I supported you. I loved you. And you just throw it away like it meant nothing. Dorothy spun around. Her fear was turning into anger. You supported me? You haven't had a job in 2 years, Trevor. I paid for everything. The rent, the food, the bills, everything. While you sat at home and criticized every single thing I did. Lower your voice. Trevor's smile faded a little. You're making a scene. There's nobody here, Dorothy said. And I'm going inside. Don't follow me. Don't come here again. Leave me alone. She turned and walked faster. Her building was just ahead. 1 more block. She could see the lights in the windows. Trevor's footsteps got faster too. We're not done talking, Dorothy. Yes, we are. Dorothy reached her building. She tried to get her key in the lock, but her hands were shaking too much. Trevor grabbed her arm. His fingers dug into her skin. You owe me a conversation. Let go of me. Dorothy tried to pull away, but his grip was too tight. After you embarrassed me in front of my family, Trevor hissed. His face was close to hers now. His breath smelled like beer. Telling them I was harassing you. Making me look like some kind of criminal. You owe me an explanation. You were harassing me. You are harassing me. Dorothy pulled harder, but Trevor's other hand went to her shoulder. He pushed her against the building door. I'm not harassing you. I love you. Don't you understand that? I love you, and you're treating me like I'm some kind of monster. Let go of me right now, or I'll scream. Scream all you want, Trevor said. Nobody's going to. The lady said let go. The voice was quiet, calm, but it cut through everything like a knife. Trevor's head whipped around. James Park was standing on the sidewalk about 5 feet away. His hands were in his pockets. He looked relaxed, but his eyes were sharp, focused. This is a private conversation, Trevor said. His hands were still on Dorothy. Mind your business. This is my building, James said. His voice didn't change. Still quiet. Still calm. That makes it my business. He looked at Dorothy. You know this person? He's my ex-boyfriend, Dorothy said. Her voice was shaking now. He was just leaving. I'm not going anywhere until we finish talking, Trevor said. He still hadn't let go of Dorothy's arm. James took a step closer. Just 1 step. Yes, you are. Something in the way he said it made Trevor's grip loosen. Just slightly. Who are you? Trevor asked. Her new boyfriend? Is that what this is about? You left me for this guy. I'm her neighbor, James said. And you're going to let go of her arm right now. You're going to walk back to your car. You're going to leave. And you're not going to come back here. Ever. Trevor laughed. But it didn't sound natural. It sounded forced. Or what? James didn't answer. He just looked at Trevor. Really looked at him. And something in that look made Trevor's laugh die in his throat. Dorothy had seen James face down 3 angry men in a hallway. She'd seen him move faster than should be possible. She'd seen him press a man against a wall with 1 arm. Trevor hadn't seen any of that. But somehow he knew. He knew he was outmatched. Trevor let go of Dorothy's arm. This is crazy, he muttered. Dorothy, you got some thug protecting you now? What happened to you? Leave, Trevor, Dorothy said quietly. Trevor pointed at her. His hand was shaking a little. This isn't over. You can't just. It is over, James interrupted. His voice was still calm, still quiet. And if you come back here, if you contact her again, if you even drive down this street, it becomes my problem. And you don't want that. You threatening me? Trevor puffed out his chest, trying to look tough. You know I could call the cops right now. Have you arrested for threatening me? Please do, James said. I'd love to explain to them about the restraining order violation. That is what those police reports were about, right, Dorothy? Dorothy nodded quickly. There wasn't actually a restraining order yet. Just the 2 police reports. But Trevor didn't need to know that. Trevor looked between them. Dorothy could see him thinking, calculating. He was a bully, and bullies know when they've met someone they can't bully. You're both crazy, Trevor said. He backed toward his car. Completely crazy. Dorothy, when you come to your senses and realize what a mistake you're making, don't come crying to me. I won't, Dorothy said. Trevor got in his car. He slammed the door hard. His tires screeched as he drove away too fast. Dorothy's legs felt weak. She leaned against the building door. Her whole body was shaking. James caught her elbow gently, steadying her. Let's get you inside. They walked up the 3 flights of stairs in complete silence. Dorothy's mind was racing. Trevor found her. After 3 months of hiding, he found her. How? How did he know where she lived? At her apartment door, Dorothy finally found her voice. Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up when you did. You don't have to thank me, James said. But you need to tell me the truth. Is there a restraining order? Dorothy shook her head. No, just 2 police reports. They said there wasn't enough evidence for a restraining order. James's jaw tightened. He'll come back. Men like that always do. When he does, you call me immediately. Don't try to handle it yourself. Understand? Why are you helping me? Dorothy asked. You don't even know me. James was quiet for a long moment. My sister had a boyfriend like that once, back in Korea. He didn't understand what no meant either. He didn't stop until our family made him stop. He paused. Nobody should have to live in fear like that. Your sister, is she okay now? She's safe, James said. That's what matters. He started walking toward his apartment, then turned back. Dorothy, those people you saw at my door a few weeks ago. My life is complicated. I'm not a good person. I don't do good things. But I don't hurt people who don't deserve it. And I especially don't accept men who hurt women. So you're safe here. In this building. From him. Do you understand? Dorothy understood. She also understood that James was telling her something important about who he was. What he was. What do you do, James? She asked quietly. I help people solve problems, he said. Problems the police can't or won't solve. Problems that require a different kind of attention. Are you in a gang? James smiled slightly. That's a very American word for it. Let's just say I have business interests that require privacy and occasionally need persuasion. The Korean Mafia, Dorothy whispered. That's also a very American term, James said. But close enough. Does that scare you? Dorothy thought about it. It should scare her. But all she could think about was Trevor's hand on her arm. The way he pushed her against the door. The way James made him leave with just a look and a few words. A little, she admitted. But Trevor scares me more. Good judgment again, James said. He pulled out his phone. Tomorrow morning, we're getting you a real restraining order. I have a lawyer who's very good at these things. I can't afford a lawyer, James. Consider it a neighbor helping a neighbor, James said. Besides, you make too much noise when you're scared. The walls are thin. It keeps me up at night. It was a joke. But Dorothy could see the concern in his eyes. Real concern. For her. Okay, Dorothy said. Thank you. For everything. Get some sleep, James said. Lock all 3 locks. Dorothy went inside. She locked all 3 locks. She sat on her couch in the dark and tried to stop shaking. Trevor had found her. The one thing she'd been afraid of for 3 months had happened. But something else had happened too. Someone had stood up for her. Someone had protected her. Someone had seen her fear and decided to help. That night, Dorothy slept better than she had in months. Because for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel completely alone. The next morning, James knocked on Dorothy's door at 9 o'clock. She'd barely slept, but when she heard his knock, she got up quickly. She looked through the peephole and saw him standing there in another expensive suit. This one was dark gray. Give me 5 minutes, Dorothy called through the door. She got dressed fast. Jeans and a sweater. She pulled her hair back into a ponytail and splashed water on her face. When she opened the door, James was still standing there, patient. Ready? He asked. Where are we going? Downtown. My lawyer's office. Her name is Patricia Dunn. She's the best at what she does. They took James's car. It was a black sedan. Clean. Expensive. The inside smelled like leather. Dorothy sat in the passenger seat and watched the city go by. Koreatown turned into other neighborhoods. They passed buildings and shops and people living their normal lives. How did Trevor find me? Dorothy asked. The question had been eating at her all night. Could be anything, James said, keeping his eyes on the road. Did you use your credit card anywhere near here? Did you tell anyone where you moved? Did you post anything on social media? Dorothy shook her head. I've been paying cash for everything. I didn't tell anyone. I haven't posted anything online in months. Then he probably hired someone, James said. A private investigator. It's not that expensive. They can track people through phone records, work records, all kinds of ways. Dorothy felt sick. I thought I was so careful. You were careful, James said. But if someone wants to find you badly enough, they'll find a way. That's why the restraining order is important. It makes what he's doing officially illegal. Real consequences if he breaks it. They parked in a garage downtown and took an elevator to the 14th floor. Patricia Dunn's office was at the end of a long hallway. The door had her name on it in gold letters. Patricia was a white woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes. She wore a business suit and no-nonsense shoes. She shook Dorothy's hand firmly. James told me about your situation, Patricia said, gesturing for Dorothy to sit. Tell me everything from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. For the next hour, Dorothy talked. She told Patricia about the 4 years with Trevor, how he changed from charming to controlling, how he quit his job and made her support him, how he isolated her from friends and family, how she finally ended it and he refused to accept it. She told Patricia about the phone calls, the fake social media accounts, the gifts left at her door, finding things moved in her apartment, Trevor sitting in the diner for hours just watching her work. She told her about the 2 police reports, about moving to Koreatown in the middle of the night, about last night when Trevor grabbed her outside her building. Patricia took notes on everything. She asked specific questions. What dates did things happen? Did Dorothy have any texts or emails from Trevor? Any witnesses? Any photos of the gifts or messages? Dorothy showed her the screenshots she'd saved on her phone. Messages from the fake accounts. Photos of flowers left at her old apartment door. The police report numbers from the 2 times she'd filed. This is good, Patricia said. This is enough. We can file for an emergency restraining order today. You'll have to go before a judge, probably tomorrow or the next day. You'll tell him what you told me. With these police reports and this evidence, you'll get your order. How long does it last? Dorothy asked. We'll request a 3-year order, Patricia said, with the right to renew. The order will state that Trevor cannot contact you in any way. No calls, no texts, no emails, no social media. He cannot come within 100 yards of you, your home, or your workplace. If he violates the order even once, he goes to jail. No questions asked. Dorothy felt something loosen in her chest. Hope. Real hope. How much will this cost? She asked. Patricia looked at James. James shook his head slightly. We'll work something out, Patricia said. Don't worry about the cost right now. Let's focus on getting you protected. They left Patricia's office 2 hours later. The paperwork was filed. Patricia said she'd call as soon as she knew when the court hearing would be. In the car on the way back to Koreatown, Dorothy turned to James. How much does she charge? Don't worry about it, James said. James, I can't let you pay for this. I need to know how much I owe you. James was quiet for a moment. Patricia handles things for my organization sometimes. Legal things. She's on retainer. This doesn't cost me anything extra. Dorothy didn't believe that for a second, but she didn't argue. She'd find a way to pay him back. Somehow. When they got back to the building, it was almost noon. James walked her to her apartment door. Thank you, Dorothy said. Really, I don't know how to repay you for this. You don't have to repay me, James said. Just stay safe. And call me if anything happens. Even if it seems small. I need to know. Why do you care so much? Dorothy asked. You said it's because of your sister, but it feels like more than that. James leaned against the hallway wall. When I first came to America, I was 19. I didn't speak much English. I didn't know anyone. I worked in a restaurant kitchen washing dishes. The owner treated me like dirt, paid me almost nothing, threatened to call immigration if I complained, even though I was here legally. He paused, looking at something Dorothy couldn't see. A memory. One day, a customer saw the owner hitting me because I broke a plate. The customer was Korean. Older guy. Connected. He asked me if I wanted help. I said yes. He made the owner pay me everything he owed me plus extra. Then he gave me a job. That's how I got into this life. Because someone saw me being treated badly and decided to help. So you're paying it forward, Dorothy said. Something like that, James said. Plus, I meant what I said. I don't like men who scare women. My sister's ex used to hit her. Used to tell her she was worthless. Used to control everything she did. When my family found out, we made it very clear he needed to leave her alone. What did you do to him? James smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. We had a conversation. He understood. He moved to a different city. He never contacted my sister again. Dorothy understood what kind of conversation that must have been. Over the next 3 weeks, Dorothy's life changed in ways she didn't expect. Patricia called 2 days later. The court hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. Dorothy had to take off work, but her boss understood. She went before a judge and told her story. The judge listened carefully. He looked at the evidence. He granted the restraining order. 3 years. 100 yards. No contact of any kind. When Dorothy left the courthouse with the official order in her hand, she felt like she could breathe fully for the first time in months. But something else was happening too. She and James were becoming friends. Real friends. It started small. James would knock on her door in the evening and ask if she needed anything from the store. Dorothy would bring him leftovers from the diner. They started having conversations that lasted longer than a few minutes. One evening, Dorothy knocked on James's door with a container of meatloaf and mashed potatoes from the diner. You don't have to keep feeding me, James said, but he took the container. You helped me get a restraining order, Dorothy said. It's the least I can do. Come in for a minute, James said. Dorothy hesitated. She'd never been inside his apartment, but she was curious. James's apartment was surprisingly normal. No weapons on the walls. No stacks of cash. No signs of illegal activity. Just a couch, a coffee table, a small television. Books on a shelf. A few plants by the window that got good light. It's nice, Dorothy said. You were expecting what? Guns everywhere? Bags of money? Dorothy laughed. Maybe a little. They sat on his couch and talked. James told her more about growing up in Seoul. About coming to America with big dreams. About how hard it was to make it in a new country. About how he got involved with people who could help him. And how that help came with a price. Do you ever want to do something different? Dorothy asked. Every day, James admitted. But it's not that simple. The people I work with, they're family. Not blood family, but the kind you choose. You don't just walk away from family. Even if that family does illegal things. Especially then, James said. In this life, loyalty is everything. If you're not loyal, you're nothing. You're dead. Dorothy told him about her own life. About growing up in Inglewood with her mother and brother. About her father leaving when she was 7. About her mother getting sick and Dorothy dropping out of community college to take care of her. About working as a waitress for 8 years because it was the only job she could get without a degree. Do you ever regret dropping out? James asked. Sometimes, Dorothy said. But my mom needed me. She didn't have anyone else. My brother was in Texas. My dad was gone. It was just me. That's not regret, James said. That's love. They talked until almost midnight. When Dorothy finally went back to her own apartment, she realized she'd just had the best conversation she'd had in years. After that night, they fell into a routine. A few times a week, they'd hang out. Sometimes in his apartment. Sometimes in hers. Sometimes on the building's roof, which had a view of the city lights. James taught her Korean phrases. Simple things. Hello. Thank you. How are you? Dorothy taught him how to make her grandmother's cornbread recipe. He burned the first batch, but the second one came out perfect. Dorothy started to notice changes in how people treated her. Shop owners in the neighborhood who used to ignore her now smiled and greeted her warmly. Mrs. Kim, the landlord, started calling her James's friend and asking if she needed anything. One evening, Dorothy and James were walking back from a Korean restaurant where they'd had dinner. 3 young guys were standing outside a grocery store harassing an elderly Korean woman. They were laughing at her, making fun of the way she spoke English, blocking her path. James walked over calmly. He said something in Korean. Just a few words. Dorothy didn't understand them. All 3 guys went silent. Their faces changed. They looked at James and then at each other. Then they quickly apologized to the woman and walked away. Fast. The elderly woman bowed to James repeatedly, thanking him in Korean. James helped her with her grocery bags and made sure she got safely to her car. "What did you say to them?" Dorothy asked as they walked away. "I told them who I was," James said simply, "and suggested they find somewhere else to be." Does that happen a lot? More than it should. People think they can do whatever they want to people they see as weak. I disagree with that philosophy. Dorothy saw then how James used his power, not just for himself or for money, but to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. It didn't make what he did legal. It didn't make it right. But it made him more than just a criminal. The restraining order worked. Trevor didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up at the diner or at Dorothy's building. Patricia had sent him a copy of the order along with a letter explaining exactly what would happen if he violated it. The letter must have scared him because Dorothy didn't hear from him at all. For the first time since she'd left Trevor, Dorothy felt safe. Really safe. And it wasn't just because of the restraining order. It was because she had someone in her corner. Someone who saw her as worth protecting. Someone who treated her like she mattered. One night on the roof, Dorothy said, "I've been thinking about my life. About what I want to do. I've been a waitress for 8 years. I'm good at it, but I don't want to do it forever." "What do you want to do?" James asked. "I've always thought about opening a small cafe," Dorothy said. "Nothing fancy. Just a neighborhood place. Good coffee. Simple food. A place where people feel welcome." "You should do it," James said. "With what money?" Dorothy laughed. "I'm a waitress who lives paycheck to paycheck. So you save. You plan. You make it happen. That's how anything gets done." "Is that how you got where you are?" "More or less," James said. "Minus the legal parts." They both laughed. Dorothy looked out at the city lights. "You really think I could do it? I've seen you handle an abusive ex-boyfriend, move across the city by yourself, rebuild your entire life from nothing, and stay strong through all of it," James said. "Opening a cafe should be easy compared to that." Dorothy smiled. For the first time in years, her dream didn't feel impossible. It felt like something she could actually work toward. That night, walking back to their apartments, Dorothy realized something. She was happy. Actually happy. Not the fake happy she'd pretended to be with Trevor. Real happiness. The kind that comes from feeling safe and having a friend and remembering who you are. She'd moved to Koreatown to hide, to disappear, to escape from Trevor. But she'd found something she wasn't looking for. She'd found herself again. And she'd found a friend in the most unexpected person. She had no idea that her peaceful life was about to be shattered. That Trevor was going to break the restraining order in the worst possible way. That the night she'd been dreading for months was just around the corner. But for now, Dorothy was happy. And that was enough. A month passed. A peaceful month. Dorothy went to work without fear. She came home without looking over her shoulder. She slept through the night. Trevor didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't show up. The restraining order was working. And every few days, Dorothy and James would sit on the roof and talk about their lives. Their dreams. Their futures. Dorothy was happy. Really happy. For the first time and longer than she could remember. She had no idea that her peace was about to be shattered. 1 month after the restraining order came through, Dorothy felt like she was finally living again. Not just surviving. Actually living. She smiled more. She laughed. She made plans for the future. She started saving money seriously, putting away half of her tips every week into an envelope she kept hidden in her closet. Trevor hadn't contacted her once. Not a single phone call. Not a text. Not a message through someone else. Nothing. The restraining order had worked. Patricia's letter explaining the consequences must have scared him enough to stay away. Dorothy let herself believe it was really over. It was a Friday night in late November. Dorothy was closing the diner. It had been a busy shift. The place was packed all evening. Her feet hurt. She smelled like coffee and grease. But her pockets were full of tips. Almost $130. A good night. Her coworker Kelly offered her a ride home. "It's late. The buses take forever this time of night." Dorothy accepted. Kelly dropped her off right in front of her building at 10 minutes past midnight. "Thanks, Kelly. See you tomorrow. Get some rest. You earned it." Dorothy walked into the building. The lobby was empty and quiet. She climbed the 3 flights of stairs, her keys already in her hand. She was thinking about taking a hot shower and going straight to bed. She reached her door. Apartment 3B. She put her key in the lock and turned it. The door opened. But Dorothy hadn't unlocked it yet. The door was already unlocked. Her blood went cold. She stood perfectly still, her hand on the doorknob, her heart starting to pound. Maybe she'd forgotten to lock it this morning? No, she never forgot. She always checked, always used all 3 locks. She pushed the door open slowly. The apartment was dark, but she could sense something wrong. The air felt different, heavy, and there was a smell, a familiar smell that made her stomach drop. Trevor's cologne. She reached for the light switch. The lights came on. Trevor was sitting on her couch. He was holding one of her kitchen knives. Dorothy couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "Hey, baby," Trevor said. His voice was soft, calm, like they were old friends meeting up for coffee. "We need to talk. How did you get in here?" Dorothy's voice came out as a whisper. Trevor held up the knife and looked at it like he was seeing it for the first time. "YouTube. Can you believe that? There's a tutorial for everything online. Picking locks is easier than I thought. Trevor, there's a restraining order. You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to contact me at all." "I know about the restraining order," Trevor said. He stood up. The knife was still in his hand. "That's why we need to talk. Face to face. Without lawyers. Without police. Without your thug neighbor interrupting us." Dorothy took a step back toward the door. Her phone was in her purse. Her purse was on her shoulder. If she could just reach it without him noticing. "Don't," Trevor said, watching her hand move toward her purse. "Don't call anyone. We're going to talk. Just talk. That's all I want." "Okay," Dorothy said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Okay, we can talk. But put down the knife first." Trevor looked down at the knife like he'd forgotten he was holding it. This is just so you'll listen. So you won't run away like you always do. I'm not going to hurt you, Dorothy. I love you. I just need you to understand something." He started pacing, back and forth across her small living room, the knife moving with every gesture of his hand. Dorothy's mind was racing. The door was still open behind her. She could run. But Trevor was between her and the door now. And he was bigger, faster. If she ran, would she make it? "Do you know what you did to my life?" Trevor said. His voice was getting louder, more upset. "My family won't talk to me because of your lies. My friends think I'm some kind of stalker. I lost a job opportunity because of your police reports. Everything is ruined. Everything. And it's all because of you." "I didn't lie about anything," Dorothy said quietly. "I told the truth about what you did. About how you treated me." "I treated you?" Trevor stopped pacing and stared at her. "I supported you. I loved you. I gave you everything. You haven't had a job in 2 years, Trevor. I paid for everything. The rent. The food. The bills. All of it. While you sat at home and criticized everything I did." "Lower your voice," Trevor said. His smile was gone now. "You're going to wake up the whole building." "There's nobody here," Dorothy said. "It's past midnight, and I'm going inside my apartment now. You need to leave. If you don't, I'm calling the police." She started to turn toward the door. Trevor moved fast. He grabbed her arm. His fingers dug into her skin. Hard. The same way he'd grabbed her outside the building a month ago. "We're not done talking," Trevor said through clenched teeth. "Let go of me." Dorothy tried to pull away, but his grip was too tight. "You owe me an explanation." Trevor's other hand went to her shoulder. He pushed her backward, away from the door. "After you embarrassed me. After you made me look like some kind of monster to everyone who knows me. You owe me a conversation." "I don't owe you anything." Dorothy pulled harder, but Trevor was stronger. He'd always been stronger. "Let go of me right now. Not until you listen." Trevor was shouting now. His face was red. Angry. "Do you know what it's like? Having people look at you like you're dangerous? Having your own mother ask if the things in those police reports are true? Having job interviews end the second they do a background check? That's not my fault. You did this to yourself." Trevor's hand tightened on her arm. It hurt. "I did this. I loved you. Everything I did was because I loved you. Love doesn't break into someone's home." Dorothy shouted back. "Love doesn't threaten people. Love doesn't." "I'm not threatening you." Trevor screamed. He still had the knife in his other hand. He seemed to have forgotten about it. "I'm trying to make you understand." "Understand what? That you can't accept no for an answer? That you won't leave me alone even when there's a legal order telling you to." Dorothy heard something. Footsteps in the hallway. Someone was coming up the stairs. Please, she thought. Please let it be James. Dorothy. A voice called from the hallway. Calm. Quiet. Familiar. Your door's open. Everything okay? James. Trevor's whole body went rigid. His face twisted with rage. Of course. Of course he's here. Are you sleeping with him now? Is that what this is about? You left me for him. No, Trevor. I left you because you were controlling and jealous, and you made my life miserable. James appeared in the doorway. He took in the whole scene in 1 second. Dorothy backed against the wall. Trevor holding her arm. The knife in Trevor's hand. The wild look in Trevor's eyes. Put down the knife, James said. His voice was calm. Steady. Like he was asking Trevor to pass the salt. Get out, Trevor screamed. This has nothing to do with you. This is between me and Dorothy. She's my neighbor, James said. He took 1 step into the apartment. Just one. She's my friend. So it has everything to do with me. He looked at Dorothy. You okay? Dorothy nodded, even though she wasn't okay. She was terrified. The police are already on their way, James said. It was a lie. A bluff. But Trevor didn't know that. I don't care about the police. Trevor shouted. I don't care about anything anymore. She took everything from me. My family. My friends. My life. Everything. You threw it away, James said quietly. When you couldn't accept her decision. When you kept harassing her. When you broke into her home. You did this to yourself. Shut up. Trevor's hand was shaking now. The knife was shaking with it. You don't know anything about us. About what we had. I know she told you to leave her alone, James said. I know there's a restraining order. I know you're violating it right now. And I know that if you don't leave immediately, this ends very badly for you. Trevor laughed. It was a horrible sound. Broken and desperate. Ends badly for me? It can't get any worse. Don't you understand that? My life is already over. She made sure of that. He looked at Dorothy, then at the knife in his hand. And Dorothy saw something change in his eyes. Something that made her blood freeze. He was going to do something. Something terrible. Trevor, don't, Dorothy whispered. But Trevor wasn't listening anymore. He raised the knife. He moved toward Dorothy. James moved faster than Dorothy had ever seen anyone move. 1 second he was standing in the doorway. The next second he was between Dorothy and Trevor. His hand caught Trevor's wrist. The wrist holding the knife. There was a struggle. Bodies colliding. Grunting. The sound of something hitting the wall. The knife clattered to the floor and slid across the room. Dorothy scrambled backward. Away from them. Her back hit the wall by the kitchen. James had Trevor on the ground now. Face down. James's knee pressed into Trevor's back. James's hand twisted Trevor's arm behind him at an angle that looked painful. Don't move, James said. His voice was different now. Cold. Dangerous. If you move, I will break your arm. I will break it in 3 places. Do you understand me? Trevor was crying. Actually crying. I just wanted her back. I just wanted things to go back to how they were. I loved her. You need help, James said. His voice was still cold. Professional help. But you're never getting near her again. Not ever. Are we clear? I loved her, Trevor sobbed. Why couldn't she see that? Dorothy fumbled for her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold it. She dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? Someone broke into my apartment, Dorothy said. Her voice was shaking. He violated a restraining order. He had a knife. He tried to hurt me. Are you safe right now? Dorothy looked at James. He still had Trevor pinned to the ground. Trevor wasn't fighting anymore. Just crying. Yes. I'm safe now. What's your address? Dorothy gave it to them. The dispatcher said police were on their way. Stay on the line. Stay where you are. Help is coming. 10 minutes later, Dorothy heard sirens. Footsteps pounding up the stairs. Police officers in uniforms flooded into her tiny apartment. They took Trevor into custody. They put handcuffs on him. He was still crying. Still saying he just wanted to talk. That he loved her. That she ruined his life. One of the officers recognized James. Dorothy saw the look that passed between them. The officer knew who James was. What he did. But he didn't say anything about it. He just took James's statement. Another officer took Dorothy's statement. She told him everything. How Trevor broke in. How he was waiting for her with a knife. How he grabbed her. How James showed up and stopped him. The officer was kind. He told her she did the right thing calling them. He told her Trevor would be charged with multiple crimes. Violating the restraining order. breaking and entering. Assault with a deadly weapon. He was looking at serious jail time. "You're safe now," the officer said. "He won't be getting out on bail. Not with these charges and the restraining order violation." They took Trevor away. Dorothy watched through her apartment window as they put him in the back of a police car. The red and blue lights were still flashing. Neighbors were looking out their windows, watching. After the police left, Dorothy and James sat in her apartment in complete silence. Dorothy was shaking. She couldn't stop shaking. James didn't say anything. He just sat next to her on the couch. Present. Steady. There. Dorothy didn't know how long they sat like that. 10 minutes. 20. An hour. Time felt strange. Finally, she found her voice. "He could have killed you. When he came at me with that knife, you didn't even hesitate. You just stepped in front of me." "Yeah," James said quietly. "Why? You could have been hurt. You could have been killed." James looked at her. Really looked at her. "Because some things are worth the risk." Dorothy started crying. Not the quiet tears from before. Real crying. Sobbing. All the fear and terror and relief pouring out of her at once. James didn't try to make her stop. Didn't tell her it was okay. He just let her cry. He sat with her while she fell apart. When she finally stopped, when there were no more tears left, James went to her kitchen. He made tea. He brought it to her in a mug. "You can't stay here tonight," he said. "The lock is broken, and you need to feel safe." "Where am I supposed to go?" "My apartment. I'll take the couch. You take the bed. Just for tonight. Tomorrow we'll get your lock fixed." Dorothy was too tired to argue. She packed a small bag, a change of clothes, her toothbrush. She followed James next door to apartment 3C. She'd been in his apartment before, but it felt different now. Quieter, calmer, safe. "Get some sleep," James said. "We'll deal with everything else tomorrow." Dorothy went into his bedroom. She lay down on his bed. The sheets smelled clean, like laundry detergent. She pulled the blanket up to her chin. For the first time since she'd walked into her apartment and found Trevor waiting for her, Dorothy felt like she could breathe. She closed her eyes, and despite everything that had happened, she fell asleep within minutes. Because she was safe. Really safe. Finally, Dorothy woke up in James's bed the next morning. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The room was unfamiliar. The light came in from a different direction than in her own apartment. Then everything from the night before came rushing back. Trevor. The knife. The police. She sat up quickly. Her heart was pounding. There was a knock on the bedroom door. "You awake?" James's voice. "Yeah. I made coffee. And I called Patricia." Dorothy got out of bed. She was still wearing the clothes from last night. Her diner uniform. She smelled like grease and fear and Trevor's cologne. She opened the door. James was standing there holding a cup of coffee. He looked tired. Like maybe he hadn't slept much either. "Patricia wants to talk to you," James said, handing her the coffee. "But she said the important part is that Trevor isn't getting out. He violated the restraining order. He broke into your home. He had a weapon. The judge denied bail. He's staying in county jail until trial." Dorothy took the coffee. Her hands were steadier this morning. "How long will that be?" "Patricia says he'll probably take a plea deal. With the restraining order violation, the witnesses, the police reports, he doesn't have much of a defense. She's guessing 6 months minimum in county jail. Maybe more. Plus probation after that. 6 months. Dorothy let that sink in. 6 months where she wouldn't have to worry about him showing up. 6 months of peace. And after he gets out, the restraining order becomes permanent. If he comes near you again after he's released, it's another felony. He'd be looking at serious prison time. Not just county jail. Dorothy sat down on the couch. She felt exhausted even though she'd just woken up. "It's really over. It's really over," James said. He sat down next to her. "How are you feeling?" "I don't know. Tired. Scared. Relieved. Everything at once." "That's normal. You went through something terrible last night." Dorothy looked at him. "You saved my life. You know that, right? If you hadn't shown up when you did, if you hadn't stepped between us, he would have hurt me. Maybe killed me." James was quiet for a moment. "I was already in the hallway when I heard you shouting. I was coming home from a meeting. I heard your voice and his voice, and I knew something was wrong." "How did you know?" "Because you sounded scared. And you never sound scared anymore. Not since you got the restraining order." Dorothy set down her coffee cup. She turned to face James fully. "Why do you care so much?" And don't just say it's because of your sister. There's more to it than that. James leaned back on the couch. He stared at the ceiling. You're right. There is more. He was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke. Most people in my life want something from me. Power, protection, money, favors. They're nice to me because they're afraid of me or because they need me. But you just wanted to be friends. You brought me food from the diner. You taught me how to make cornbread. You talked to me about dreams and plans and normal things. You treated me like a regular person. You are a regular person. No, I'm not. I'm a criminal. I do things that hurt people sometimes. I'm not a good person, Dorothy. You're good to me, Dorothy said quietly. That counts for something. James looked at her. You changed something in me. Made me think maybe I could be different. Maybe I could do something else with my life. Something better. You can, Dorothy said. You're smart. You understand people. You could do anything you wanted. Maybe. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Dorothy finished her coffee. She felt more human now. More present. I need to shower and change, she said. And probably call work and tell them I can't come in today. Already done, James said. I called the diner this morning. Told them you had a family emergency. They said take all the time you need. Thank you. There's a locksmith coming to your apartment at noon to replace your lock. And I'm having a security camera installed outside your door. Just in case. Dorothy wanted to ask how much all this was costing him. She wanted to insist on paying him back. But she was too tired. Okay. Thank you. She went back to his bedroom. She took her small bag and went into his bathroom. The shower was hot and strong. She stood under the water for a long time, washing away the smell of Trevor's cologne, washing away the fear, washing away the feeling of his hand on her arm. When she came out, she felt cleaner, more like herself. James had left her apartment key on the kitchen counter with a note. New locks installed. 3 deadbolts. Camera up. You're safe. I'm in 3C if you need me. Dorothy went back to her apartment. The door had 3 shiny new locks. Above the door was a small camera. She used her key and went inside. Everything looked normal, like last night hadn't happened. Except the kitchen knife was gone. The police had taken it as evidence. And there was a business card on her counter from one of the officers with a case number written on it. Dorothy looked around her small apartment. Her home. The place she'd moved to so she could feel safe. Last night, that safety had been violated. But she was taking it back. Starting now. She locked all 3 locks. She changed into comfortable clothes. She made herself lunch even though she wasn't hungry. She was doing normal things. Living her life. Not letting Trevor take anything else from her. Patricia called that afternoon. She explained everything in detail. Trevor was being charged with multiple crimes. Violating a restraining order. Breaking and entering. Assault with a deadly weapon. Attempted assault. The district attorney was taking it seriously because of Dorothy's previous police reports and the restraining order. He's going to take a plea deal, Patricia said. His public defender already reached out. They know they can't win this case. Too many witnesses. Too much evidence. Trevor will plead guilty in exchange for a lighter sentence. How light? I'm pushing for 18 months in county jail. 3 years probation after that. Mandatory counseling. And the restraining order becomes permanent. For life. He won't be able to contact you ever again. If he tries, it's an automatic felony. When will we know? Probably within a week or 2. I'll call you as soon as I hear anything. After Patricia hung up, Dorothy sat on her couch. 18 months. Trevor would be in jail for 18 months. And after that, he'd be on probation. He'd have to stay away from her or go back to jail. It was really over. Actually over this time. The next few weeks were strange. Dorothy went back to work. She smiled at customers. She took orders. She brought food. She made tips. Everything looked normal on the outside. But inside, she was changing. She was stronger now. She'd survived Trevor. She'd survived the worst thing she could imagine. And she was still standing. Still breathing. Still here. James checked on her every day. Sometimes just a knock on the door to make sure she was okay. Sometimes they'd have dinner together. Sometimes they'd sit on the roof and talk. 1 month after that terrible night, Patricia called with the final news. Trevor had taken the plea deal. 18 months in county jail. 3 years probation. Permanent restraining order. Mandatory counseling for anger management and controlling behavior. It's official, Patricia said. You're safe, Dorothy. Legally and permanently. Dorothy hung up the phone. She walked next door and knocked on James's door. When he opened it, she hugged him. A real hug. Tight and grateful. He took the deal, she said. 18 months. It's over. James hugged her back. Good. That's really good. That night, they went up to the roof to celebrate. James brought 2 bottles of soda because Dorothy didn't drink alcohol. They sat on the old lawn chairs someone had left up there and looked at the city lights. What are you going to do now? James asked. Now that you're really free? Dorothy had been thinking about that. I'm going to live. Really live. Not just survive. I'm going to save money for my cafe. I'm going to take more business classes. I'm going to build the life I want. That sounds good. What about you? You said I made you think about doing something different. James nodded slowly. I've been talking to my sister. She knows people in San Francisco who run import businesses. Korean companies bringing goods to America. They need consultants who understand both cultures, both languages. It's legitimate work. Legal work. Good money. Are you going to do it? I'm thinking about it. I can't just walk away from everything overnight. I have responsibilities. People who depend on me. But I can start transitioning. Do both for a while. Eventually phase out the illegal stuff and focus on the legal consulting. I think you'd be good at that, Dorothy said. Yeah. You're good at solving problems. Good at understanding what people need. Those are valuable skills in any business. They sat in comfortable silence. 2 people who'd been through something terrible together. 2 people who'd saved each other in different ways. Thank you, Dorothy said after a while. For what? For being there that night. For stepping in front of me. For caring when you didn't have to. James looked at her. You're my friend, Dorothy. Friends show up. That's what they do. Over the next 6 months, Dorothy's life transformed. With Trevor in jail and no more fear hanging over her, she threw herself into her dreams. She picked up extra shifts at the diner. She saved half of every paycheck and every dollar in tips. She took a business class at the community college 2 nights a week. James helped in ways big and small. He introduced her to Mr. Cho, a Korean accountant who taught her about business finances for free. He connected her with restaurant owners who gave her advice about suppliers, health inspectors, and managing employees. He helped her look at potential locations for her cafe, even though they were all way out of her budget right now. Their friendship deepened. Dorothy met some of James's associates. Serious men in expensive suits who treated her with respect because she was James's friend. One of them, a man named Danny Kim, explained it to her. Your family, he said simply. The boss's family is our family. Dorothy also saw more of how James operated in the neighborhood. He wasn't just running illegal businesses. He was helping people. A shop owner being extorted by gang members from another neighborhood. An elderly couple being threatened by their landlord. A young woman whose ex-boyfriend wouldn't leave her alone. James helped them all. Sometimes with just a conversation. Sometimes with money. Sometimes with his presence and reputation. He didn't charge them. It was just what he did. Dorothy started teaching James more cooking. Southern food her grandmother had taught her. Fried chicken. Collard greens. Sweet potato pie. James was a terrible cook at first, but he got better with practice. James taught Dorothy more Korean. Full sentences now. Basic conversations. How to order food at restaurants. How to ask for directions. How to say thank you properly. Dorothy called her brother Dennis more often. They talked every week. Really talked. She told him about her cafe plans. He told her about his kids. They were rebuilding their relationship. Becoming family again. One Saturday afternoon, Dorothy's phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer. But something made her pick up. Hello. Dorothy, it's Patricia. I have news. Dorothy's heart jumped. What kind of news? Trevor's being released early. He's served 6 months of his 18-month sentence. He's being released on probation for good behavior. Dorothy sat down hard. 6 months. He was supposed to serve 18. I know. I'm sorry. The county jail is overcrowded. They're releasing non-violent offenders early to make room. Trevor's lawyer argued he was a model prisoner. The judge approved early release with strict probation. What does that mean? It means he's out. But he's still under the restraining order. Still can't contact you or come near you. If he violates probation in any way, he goes right back to jail to serve the rest of his sentence plus additional time. And Dorothy, the probation is strict. He has to check in with his probation officer twice a week. He has to attend counseling. He can't leave the county without permission. One wrong move and he's done. After Patricia hung up, Dorothy sat on her couch and tried not to panic. Trevor was out. After only 6 months. He was out there somewhere. But he couldn't come near her. The restraining order was still active. Permanent now. He'd be stupid to violate it. Dorothy told herself that over and over. He'd be stupid to violate it. He wouldn't risk going back to jail. But a small part of her didn't believe it. She knocked on James's door. When he answered, she told him. He's out early. 6 months instead of 18. James's face didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. The restraining order is still active? Yes. Patricia said if he violates it or his probation, he goes right back to jail. Okay, then you're still safe. Legally protected. And Dorothy, I'm still right next door. If anything happens, anything at all, you call me. Dorothy nodded. She wanted to believe she was safe. She wanted to believe Trevor had learned his lesson. But deep down, she knew better. Men like Trevor didn't change. They just got quieter, more careful. She went back to her apartment. She locked all 3 locks. She checked the security camera feed on her phone. Everything was normal. But Dorothy couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over yet. Not completely. She was right, but she had no idea how right she was. What she didn't know was that Trevor wasn't done. That his time in jail hadn't taught him to leave her alone. It had just taught him to be smarter about it. But that was a problem for another day. Right now, Dorothy was safe. She had friends. She had dreams. She had a life she was building. And she wasn't going to let Trevor take any of that away from her ever again. 6 months after Trevor was released from jail, Dorothy stood in front of a small storefront on 6th Street in Koreatown. The space was tiny, maybe 500 square feet. The windows were dirty. The inside needed work. But the rent was affordable. And it was hers. She signed the lease on a cold morning in March. 1 year and 7 months after she'd moved into the apartment building. 1 year and 7 months after she'd met James Park. Dorothy had saved $12,000. Every extra shift at the diner. Every tip she could spare. Every dollar she didn't spend on things she didn't need. $12,000 in cash that she kept in envelopes in her closet. She got a small business loan for the rest. $20,000. Mr. Cho, the accountant James had introduced her to, helped her with the application. He made sure all her paperwork was perfect. The bank approved it. Dorothy was opening her cafe. Really opening it. This wasn't a dream anymore. It was real. She called it Dorothy's Place. Simple. Welcoming. Exactly what she'd envisioned. James insisted on investing. Let me be part of this, he said. I want to help. You've already helped so much, Dorothy said. The lawyer, the accountant, the restaurant owners who gave me advice. All of it. Then let me help more. Let me invest. Not alone. A partnership. I'll be a silent partner. You run everything. I just want to be part of something good. Dorothy hesitated. She wanted to do this herself. Prove she could. But she also knew that James's help had gotten her this far. And he wasn't trying to control her. He was trying to support her. Okay, she said. But I'm in charge. I make all the decisions. Deal. James invested $10,000. Dorothy used it to buy equipment. A commercial coffee machine. An oven. A refrigerator. Tables and chairs. Plates and cups. Everything she needed. She spent 3 months getting the space ready. Painting the walls a warm yellow. Installing shelves. Setting up the kitchen. Getting all the permits and licenses. Passing the health inspection. James helped when he could. He couldn't paint or fix things, but he knew people who could. A contractor who owed him a favor came and did the electrical work for free. A plumber he knew fixed the bathroom. A sign maker created a beautiful wooden sign that said Dorothy's Place in elegant letters. The neighborhood rallied around her. Shop owners stopped by to wish her luck. Mrs. Kim came to see the space and brought a lucky bamboo plant for the counter. The restaurant owners James had introduced her to gave her tips on suppliers and pricing. Dorothy hired 2 employees. Both were young Korean women working their way through college. Minji was studying nursing. Haewon was studying business. They were both hard workers who needed flexible schedules. Perfect for a small cafe just starting out. Opening day was a Saturday morning in late spring. Dorothy woke up at 4 in the morning. She couldn't sleep. She was too nervous, too excited, too everything. She got to the cafe at 5. She made sure everything was perfect. She brewed the first pot of coffee. She set out the pastries she'd made the night before. Blueberry muffins, banana bread, chocolate chip cookies. She arranged the tables. She checked the menu board one more time. At 6:30, she unlocked the door. She turned the sign from closed to open. By 7, there was a line out the door. Mrs. Kim was first. She ordered coffee and a muffin and sat at a corner table with a newspaper. Then came the shop owners from nearby stores. Then came people from the neighborhood James had introduced her to. Then came James's associates, serious men in expensive suits trying to look casual in the cheerful little cafe. James showed up at 8. He ordered black coffee and sat at the counter. He didn't say much. Just watched Dorothy work with a small smile on his face. By noon, Dorothy had served over 60 customers. Her feet hurt. Her face hurt from smiling. But she was happy. Actually, genuinely happy. "You did it," James said when there was finally a break in the line. "We did it," Dorothy corrected. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Sure you could have. It just would have taken longer." Minji and Haewon were great employees. They were fast learners. Good with customers. By the end of the first week, they had the routine down perfectly. Dorothy's place became exactly what she'd envisioned. A neighborhood spot where everyone felt welcome. Business people stopped by for coffee on their way to work. Students came to study. Elderly Korean women met for tea and pastries. Families came for breakfast on weekends. The local Korean newspaper did a feature on Dorothy after the first month. "New cafe brings heart to Koreatown" was the headline. They took her picture standing in front of her sign. They wrote about her journey. About starting over in a new neighborhood. About following her dreams. The article didn't mention Trevor. It didn't mention running or hiding or being afraid. It just focused on the good parts. The new beginning. The success. The community. Business was good. Not amazing, but steady. Dorothy was making enough to pay her bills, pay her employees, and slowly pay back her business loan. She wasn't getting rich, but she was building something. Something that was hers. James kept his promise about going legitimate. He started a consulting business helping Korean companies navigate American business regulations, import-export laws, licensing requirements, cultural differences in business practices. He still had his other business, the less legal one, but he was transitioning slowly, taking fewer meetings, passing responsibilities to others in his organization, building his legal business while phasing out the illegal one. "It's going to take time," he told Dorothy one evening as they cleaned the cafe after closing. "I can't just walk away. There are people who depend on me. Relationships that go back years. But I'm getting there." "I'm proud of you," Dorothy said. "I'm proud of you too. Look at this place. Look at what you built." Dorothy looked around her cafe. The yellow walls. The wooden tables. The smell of coffee and fresh pastries. The photos on the wall of the neighborhood. The customers who came back day after day. She'd built this. From nothing. From fear and hiding and starting over. She'd built something beautiful. 3 months after opening, Dorothy got a call from Dennis, her brother in Texas. "I'm coming to visit," he said. "Next month. Me, the wife, the kids. We want to see your cafe. We want to celebrate with you." Dorothy felt tears in her eyes. "Really? Really? You did something amazing, sis. We're proud of you. Mom would be proud too." Dennis and his family came in June. They stayed for a long weekend. Dennis's kids, a boy and a girl, loved the cafe. They sat at the counter and ate muffins and drew pictures. Dennis's wife, Carol, was warm and funny. They all got along perfectly. James met them. Dennis shook his hand and said, "Thank you for looking out for my sister." "She looks out for herself," James said. "I just stood nearby in case she needed backup." On their last night, they all had dinner at a Korean restaurant. Dorothy, Dennis, Carol, the kids, and James. It felt like family. Real family. The kind you choose and the kind you're born with all mixed together. After they left, Dorothy felt different. Fuller somehow. Like pieces of herself that had been missing were finally back in place. One evening 6 months after opening, Dorothy and James were sitting in the cafe after closing. They did this sometimes. Just sat and talked while Dorothy counted the register and James drank coffee. "Can I tell you something?" James said. "Always. You changed my life. You know that, right?" Dorothy looked up from counting bills. "How did I do that?" "You showed me it's never too late to start over. To become who you're supposed to be instead of who circumstances made you. When I met you, I was stuck. I'd been doing the same thing for 15 years. I thought that's all I'd ever be. A criminal. Someone people were afraid of. But you saw something different in me. You treated me like a regular person. Like a friend. And that made me think maybe I could be different. You were always more than what you did, Dorothy said. I just reminded you of that. Exactly. And now look at us. You've got your cafe. I'm building a legitimate business. We're both becoming who we're meant to be. Dorothy smiled. We saved each other. Yeah, we did. They sat in comfortable silence. Outside, the streetlights came on. People walked by on the sidewalk. Cars drove past. The city hummed with life. Dorothy thought about where she'd been 18 months ago. Scared. Running. Hiding from Trevor. Living in constant fear. Feeling like her life was spiraling out of control. And now she owned a cafe. She had employees. She had regular customers who knew her name. She had her brother back in her life. She had James, a true friend who'd stood by her through the worst time of her life. Trevor was somewhere out there, on probation, required to stay away from her. She hadn't heard from him since he was released from jail. Not a call, not a message, nothing. Maybe he'd finally moved on. Maybe he'd learned his lesson. Or maybe he was just being smart. Dorothy didn't waste time thinking about him anymore. He'd taken enough of her time, enough of her peace, enough of her life. She wasn't giving him anything else. What are you thinking about? James asked. How far I've come. How different my life is now compared to when I first moved here. Good different. The best different. James raised his coffee cup. To new beginnings. Dorothy raised her water bottle. To good friends. They clinked them together. Dorothy looked around her cafe one more time. At the menu board she'd written by hand. At the tables where people laughed and talked every day. At the counter where she served coffee and kindness in equal measure. She'd done it. She'd really done it. She'd escaped from Trevor. She'd built a new life. She'd followed her dream. She'd proven to herself that she was strong enough, brave enough, capable enough to do anything she set her mind to. And she'd done it with help. With James's friendship and support. With the community that had embraced her. With her own courage and determination. Dorothy's story wasn't about the bad things that had happened to her. It was about what she did after. How she survived. How she fought back. How she built something beautiful from the ashes of her old life. It was a story about courage. About friendship. About never giving up on yourself even when things seem impossible. It was a story about starting over. And discovering that sometimes the scariest decisions, leaving everything behind, trusting an unlikely friend, pursuing a dream that seems impossible, are exactly the ones that save us. Dorothy had fought for her right to live in peace and safety. And she'd won. Not just because of James, though his help had been crucial, but because she'd had the courage to keep moving forward even when she was terrified. She'd taken her life back. And she was never letting anyone take it away again. Dorothy's place stayed open for many years. It became a Koreatown institution. A place where everyone was welcome. Where the coffee was always hot and the owner always had a kind word. And if you asked Dorothy what she was most proud of, she wouldn't say the cafe. She'd say the journey. The transformation from a scared woman hiding in a new neighborhood to a business owner who'd found her strength again. She'd say the friendship she'd built with an unlikely neighbor who'd shown up when she needed someone most. She'd say the life she'd created. On her own terms. In her own way. Free from fear. Full of hope. That was Dorothy's story. And it was just beginning. Dorothy's story teaches us that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is run from danger and start fresh. It shows us that help can come from the most unexpected places. And that real friendship means showing up when it matters most. Both Dorothy and James prove that your past doesn't have to define your future. No matter where you've been or what you've been through, it's never too late to become who you're meant to be. Sometimes the scariest decisions, leaving everything behind, trusting an unlikely friend, pursuing a dream that seems impossible, are exactly the ones that save us. Dorothy fought for her right to live in peace and safety, and she won. Not just because of James, but because she had the courage to keep moving forward even when she was terrified. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like Dorothy's. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to start over. Drop a comment below and let us know what lesson from Dorothy's story resonated most with you. Your support means everything to us and helps us continue bringing you these powerful stories. Thank you for watching, and remember, You are stronger than you think, and you deserve to live without fear.